David Oskinen's Zip Pocket is sponsored by the School of Rock Main Line. I'd like to thank the School of Rock Main Line, located at 511 Old Lancaster Road in Berwyn. You can visit their website at schoolofrock.com. Ask for Dave Marsh or Rick Allison.
Wednesday. No, it's Thursday. We switched days. I'm losing my days here, but it's a great day. I'm thrilled to be here with our guest who I'm meeting actually for the first time, but I've known him through my buddy Kenny Aronson. It speaks incredibly, says glowing things about our friend, his friend Richard X Heyman from the Doughboys, who has recently put out a great new record, and he's here to talk to me about it and drumming and his great music and influences. And, hey, Richard, it's good to meet you, my friend.
Same here.
Yeah, man.
Love your drumming. I just did a whole Hooters festival.
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, man. It's really nice of you, man. Let me tell you, one day Kenny and I, because Kenny and I have this little side project, and we've been, since he moved out to Philadelphia, we've been playing a lot together. And we do this gig called QDK with a guy named Quentin Jones. It's kind of I don't want to call it rockabilly, but it's kind of a little bit rootsy, but Quentin is kind of known for his rockabilly stuff with Robert Gordon and things like that. And Kenny and I both have played with Robert a little bit. So it's a little bit, it's just a fun gig. And Kenny and I were riding to gigs from time to time together because he's my neighbor. And I was asking him one day, I pointedly asked him, I said, like, who's your, because he's played with so many drummers. He played with so many cats. And I said, do you have a favorite drummer? You are his favorite drummer. Now he said that to me. He said, well, there's this guy, Richard X Heyman. And he thought about it for a little because he played with so many guys and he didn't want to, he was like, there's this guy, Richard X Heyman, that played with the Doughboys. And I knew the Doughboys because I listened to Little Steven's show and I would hear Sink or Swim. And yeah, man. And I heard your stuff and then he kind of gave me the skinny on like, I said, well, what did you like about Richard so much? He goes, he mentioned your style and you had a thing. I mean, and then I wanted to look him up. I said like, what's going on with this cat? Not only because I knew your music from your records, but I wanted to read a little bit more. And I looked at your photos and I checked out your solo stuff and, you're a prolific songwriter and you're like doing all this great stuff and well, bravo. And man, I'll tell you, the Doughboys, well, that's another thing that kind of blew me away that, you started playing gigs when you were like 14 years old. Is that true? That with the Doughboys?
Earlier, actually. The Doughboys started in '64, so I would have been 12. I was 12.
Oh, man.
When we started.
Yeah. I mean, you started...
as the whole British invasion was happening, we were kids, but we had a band together and we were doing all the hits of the day.
Wow. When I was reading, I noticed one thing that we both, as me being a drummer, I was really, this British invasion, 66, 67, all that kind of stuff. 60, we're going back at the time, 60. I guess when they were on Stones, it was 64, right? Was it 1964?
Yeah,
when they were on the Sullivan Show, was it 64 that they were on the Sullivan Show or 65?
Yeah.
So I was reading, there was someone that asked you about your favorite records and you listed the Kinks and you listed the Stones and you listed the Beatles, of course. You listed an era of the Beatles, the early records, especially the second album. You mentioned that. And but I thought, wow, man, this guy, was really into the same music. You know what struck me too about that interview, Richard, and then I'll let you talk. I'm sorry, I'm
That's
yapping on. You know, it's funny, and I don't see them mentioned a lot. You know, like at the time, the Dave Clark Five.
Hey, Freddie's here.
Hey, that Freddie's back.
Hey, Freddie.
Are you? It looks like how you doing over there, Richard? You hearing us okay?
I'm good so far.
Beautiful, beautiful. So let me introduce you to my friend Freddie Berman, Freddie B.
Hey,
Fantastic drummer. He played for years with Amos Lee, and he's an institution here in Philadelphia. And he's played all around the world. He's done like great things, and he's a brilliant guy. My buddy. He's my brother from another mother. So we do this podcast together. So good drummers talking to other great drummers and vibing with them. So Freddie, meet Richard X. Uh-oh.
You can't hear us.
Oh no.
All those nice things to him about it. You're gonna have to say them all again.
Oh no. Oh well. Freddie, unfortunately, we see you, but we can't hear you. So I'm not really sure what's going on. He logged out. But hey, listen. I gave him he'll enjoy what I said.
That's right.
But when he interrupted us, I was mentioning that one band that I would not see that I really loved when I was younger was the Dave Clark Five, right? And it was, but they were a different thing, you know. I mean, and I didn't even realize how big they were in England. Like I knew they were massive to come on the Ed Sullivan Show and tour the U.S., but they were, they had their own TV shows like the Monkees had in America. The Dave Clark Five had a TV show like that in the UK, which I never knew. That was one of it's one of those bands who had so many hit records that are excluded off certain lists. When I saw it struck me. I don't know if you were a fan of the Dave Clark Five.
One of the first concerts I ever saw.
Yeah, all right. And Dave was playing, right?
Yeah, I saw him at Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
I think it was, I want to say, was it April? I can't remember what month. I think it was April. It was very early. It might have been May of '64. It was right after the Beatles had come and gone back to England. And then the Dave Clark Five showed up. And they were playing a string of concerts at Carnegie Hall. And I saw them third row center.
Wow.
And it was pretty great.
Yeah.
A lot of screaming. Remember, it was the guitar player Lenny Davidson's birthday, and all the girls had signs.
Went nuts. Happy birthday,
yeah.
Lenny.
But what's interesting about the Dave Clark Five, and it's not even interesting, it's bewildering. There's no live clips of them whatsoever.
Yeah.
In the entire side of the world. I've searched. You would think somebody along the line would have filmed them live, but there's not one. Every appearance you see is them lip syncing.
I know, and that probably led to the conjecture that Bobby Graham or Tim Catania or somebody was playing drums on that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I get into a whole conversation. Nancy and I talk about this all the time. All our favorite studio drummers and what they've done, and just the English guys and the East Coast guys that nobody knew about.
Yeah. And you've been around a long time, and you were in New York City and that part of North Jersey that really was, that was a music mecca back in the day. Really, you think about some of the great music that came out of there, and that probably inspired you with the Doughboys to,
Definitely.
That's what I want to do. And you were always, were you playing guitar back then? You were playing drums with the band?
Yeah, I didn't really even take an interest in guitar until I was in college. So I would have been like around 18, maybe just starting to learn some folk chords.
Yeah.
But I had been banging around on piano, so I knew my music. I took music courses in junior high and high school.
Yeah.
So by the time I got to college, I knew music fundamentals and theory and things like that. But I was primarily a drummer, and it was very difficult to learn the guitar at first. Drummers' hands aren't geared for guitar chords, and it's a whole other muscle set. But once I got, my G chord, my C, my D, you start getting a little better, and then the songwriting thing kind of came into it. I could think, oh yeah, I could maybe write some songs with these chords.
I love the photo. I love the photo of you with the notepads. The photo, it just like, are you one of these guys that's always like taking notes? Are you a note guy? Like, we don't know when something's going to inspire you. Nowadays, you got your phone where you can record an idea or a line, or you got the notepad in an app. You can write it down. Or you want to guys that do.
People don't realize this, but I'm a total Luddite. I don't do technology at all. I'm one of the last people on the planet that doesn't have a cell phone.
Yeah,
never had one.
Oh well, there's a really famous sports. He's an icon here in Philadelphia. His name's Ray Didinger, and he's in the NFL Football Hall of Fame. And listen, and he doesn't have a cell phone.
Good for him.
He might have finally got one, but I think Diddy's maybe in his late 70s. I'm not sure. I read his book and it was brilliant, but he doesn't. Same thing. He loathes social media. He loathes. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that, but it's not his thing. And cell phones. He says when he's out of work, no one can get him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I love just being old school about walking around, being in touch with my environment as I'm walking down. Everybody else is kind of glued to their phone.
You've noticed that? I'm sure that's something that you probably go like, wow.
Yeah, I don't miss it because I've never had one. So I've been living the same way for my whole life. And don't get me wrong, I can go down the rabbit hole on YouTube like everybody else. And
there's some great stuff you can find.
Oh, I know. I mean, I'm a history buff. So along with all the music on YouTube, you can look at historical speeches of. I'm a big John F. Kennedy fan.
Yeah.
I love watching his press conferences and the speeches he made.
Yeah.
And so I'll spend just a whole night watching Kennedy stuff.
I'm with you. I love that stuff. I rode when I was on tour once with the Hooters. I was in Dallas. And we had this truck driver. He was a Hell's Angel, and he loaned me his motorcycle. And all I did for the afternoon is rode around the grassy knoll.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I was driving around and thinking about, like, this was in the 80s. It was a beautiful sunny day, and I was riding around, looking around, and just thinking about all these things that the books depository, where Oswald was supposed to be, and all that, or where he was. And I'm riding around checking it out. And, I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff too, man.
Cool.
We must have coffee and hang out someday, man. We have a conversation about some history stuff. I love it. I'm a big reader. I must say though, I worked for a technology company for a little while. So I learned, I was forced to learn certain things. I was living out on the West Coast, so I latched on to some of it. It can be a daunting task sometimes learning. And like yesterday, I had to put a whole new update my laptop because things weren't working, so I had to put a whole new operating system on it, and which I'm still working on it. Started it yesterday, so it's like there's new things that happen with that technology stuff every week that they don't tell you. You find out when you try to use something and you go, oh my God, I can't get my email. So you're forced to do, spend a whole afternoon or evening, whatever you had planned, forget about it, because you can't live your life afterwards because you're connected to everybody in the world through this thing, It's a little bit of a bummer, So from what I understand, Freddie can hear us. Thumbs up if you can hear us.
I'm good. I'm good.
Oh, you're here, man. Right on. So,
speaking of technology. My goodness. Hi, Richard.
Good. You guys can meet. Are we back?
Now we're back to some technical difficulties. Oh no. Let me hear it. Can I hear you guys again?
Yeah. I hope.
You guys
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Can you hear us? Maybe you
just. What were you saying, Freddie?
So far, so good.
Go ahead, Freddie.
No, I was going to say, speaking of technology, I had a problem getting back in.
right.
Maybe I should stay up. Maybe that's a problem.
No, man. Listen, Freddie. Hey, Richard. Freddie was a part of the Philadelphia. There's like they have a great music scene in this city. Amazing musicians. There's a guy named Andrew Lipke who, with a few other people, he was the music director. He put together the Philadelphia Tribute to the Last Waltz, which some cities do, and their version of it is fantastic. And Freddie was one of the drummers that him and a guy named Matt Muir that played, and they were brilliant. I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be asked to guest on a couple songs that I had a blast. But they had some great guest singers that came in. Garth Hudson did it with the band in 2013. It's the third one. And Garth came and played.
Big band fan.
Yeah, I read that you love Levon and Freddie too.
The whole band. I mean, every aspect of that band was just so. The chemistry and the songs,
the singing,
everything. So listen. Let me get this right. Hold on one second. I got my notes.
But you know what? The last thing you asked me is if I'm a note taker.
Yes.
And the answer is actually I'm not. I really just start writing when I have to write lyrics, and then I kind of just get down to business and try to get them done. But,
Are you one of these guys when you write a song, like you start it and you're not leaving till it's done? Or is it something that you
varies. It really does. It just depends on what happens for that particular song. Sometimes it's all in one fell swoop. It could be, a 15-minute job. It could be all day, and then there's ones you just can't get it done, and then you come back to it. And, and then there's some you abandon and you come back years later and you take a piece of it to, I did that a bit on this new album. I took some real old
67, songs. Love the title, 67,000 Miles, an album. That's clever, man. Great. You hear that, Fred? That's awesome.
That's how fast we're traveling around the sun at 67,000 miles. So I just thought, if I make an album that's around an hour long, that means that if you listen to the album, you've literally traveled 67,000 miles through space. And I just thought that's just so weird to think about.
It is.
Yeah. Well, it's brilliant. It really is. Howard, who's helping with your PR, sent me a couple of tracks, and I was really struck when it sounded great. It's this great sounding record. You produced the record, and your wife, who's somebody who played?
It's Nancy.
Nancy, hi Nancy. Nancy, hi Nancy, and who's your friend there? Is that a kitty cat there on your lap?
Redford.
Oh man, that's great. Oh my gosh, how old's Redford?
1. He's 1 year old.
Oh my gosh!
Wow.
Wait till Alan gets a load of Redford.
Yeah, right off the streets of New York on the Lower East Side.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was.
Wow. He hit the jackpot.
Yeah, he
nice.
He's very happy here.
Yeah, he hit the jackpot. Look at that. Nancy's arms there having a ball. Look at that. Redford's a happy man. Well, the record really sounds great. The tracks that I heard sound fantastic. Yeah, and I noticed that and I was reading stuff about, your methods and writing and producing. You produce your records, and sonically, did you so as far as recording it, did you go to an actual studio? Did you use a studio in New York? Where did you record the record?
The record started at a studio called East Side Sound on the Lower East Side here in Manhattan. I did like a 12-hour just blocked out session, only drums. And so I just set the drum kit up in the middle of the studio. They mic'd it all up with thousands of mics that they do now.
Right. I know. Yeah, we both get that. We like that.
Yeah.
And, I would just sit to a click track and play one song after another. while I was singing the song in my head. And if I kind of got lost, Nancy was in the control room guiding me. The chorus was coming or whatever. So we just did it like that. We have all the drum tracks. Then we take all that home, put it into Logic Pro.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
And just start layering guitar,
so,
keyboards, guitar, and vocals, and until we have.
I thought I knew those drums. Fred, I don't know if you heard the tracks yet, but they really have a nice, like they have that great like analog sound, and you did it, digitally, recording it like a studio, and then came home and started layering it, which like a lot of records are done these days.
Sure.
You live in an apartment in New York City, right?
This is where it was recorded, right here in the bedroom.
Awesome.
One of our, it's not so much of a trick, everybody does it, but we use as many tube kind of applications as possible. So all the vocals are sung into Russian tube microphone that we use.
Right.
All the
those Telefunken mics are really nice mics. I don't know if you ever use those.
Yeah,
They're really good.
Can't remember the name of the mic. It's some Russian-made tube mic that.
Yeah.
And then for guitars, I play everything through a Fender amp, vibro champ, so you get the nice warm tube.
What a great amp! I had one for the longest time. I just gave it back to Eric Bazillion.
Awesome. So everything is kind of old school, except it's got to go into this digital world of the Logic Pro.
Logic. It's all the same thing, isn't it?
But,
Pro Tools charge you more money for it.
This is, I guess, Apple's version of Pro Tools.
But, I like it.
And I got to give a shout out to our friend Tony Lewis, who mixes all this stuff for us. So what we do is we send him rough mixes and all the raw tracks out in New Jersey. And he starts to mix it, and we just go back and forth via MP3s and telephone calls until everybody's happy. Because we just found it's nice to have a professional mix guy with fresh ears take over after we've been working on the tracking, because you get sick to death of this stuff, and a little more objective, and we still drive him crazy because we want what we want, but at the end it seems to work out. So it's like a little bit of a team.
It sounds great. Like I was really struck by when I heard Washington Rock. Is that Washington?
Yeah.
The vocals struck. It was like early Hollies. The intro of it, I had that really, really nice.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of credit's got to go to Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy. Yeah, I know. And from what I understand, I wanted to point out that I read that both you guys, both you have to sign off. It's like if you like it, but Nancy, more importantly, Nancy has to like the product.
Right, and she's the most important. Yeah, she's everything.
Exactly.
So all the initial raw, rough tracks are the quality is due to her engineering skills. So I thank her for that. And
that's awesome.
Like you said, the quality control board.
Yeah.
So I got to go through her, because if it was
good to have that, it's good to have it. It's really good. You have multiple ears, somebody you trust.
I mean, if it wasn't, I would sound like the Shags if it wasn't for her.
Man. Well, I love the Shags.
Nice.
I'm just saying, I'd be a lot better sounding.
Yeah, man.
I don't have the patience to get it to the point where Nancy's happy, but she makes me do it. So, every guitar part, I'm sitting there until she's giving me the okay. That's good enough. And so that's how we work.
Awesome. Hey, Richard, you mentioned the Shags. That's mandatory listen. I was mandatory listening when on the Hooters when we were, on the tour bus. The Shags and the Schmengies. I don't know if you know the Schmengies. The Schmengies, got to check out the Schmengies. The Shags were like, that was mandatory listening for the Hooters. Indeed, that inspired many a record for us. But listen, Richard, if Richard is listening, if Rich is listening, I want to hear Washington Rock. Can we pull that up? Yeah.
Tell you what, there's a spot where you've never been. It's a short ride up to Watchung. It'll make your poor head spin. Back in 77, Will Howe was Westfield bound. But old George, he had this lookout, and the Brits were lost and found from Washington Rock. And you'll see when we get up there, it's a fine view to behold. A panoramic vista where you can feel forever unfold. In fact, the general stayed in Plainfield at the Drake House right downtown, where he planned to down the short hills that sent a message to the crowd from Washington Rock. Don't mean to get nostalgic, but when the present feels too confined, I find myself transported to a place that's alive in my mind. Yes, these sights have a special meaning. I mean beyond historically. You see, I first went with my father, and he shared this world with me. My Washington Rock. Washington wasn't perfect, no, he was flawed in a profound way. But still I have to wonder how he'd look at us today from Washington Rock.
Oh, great.
Washington Rock.
I had to let it play through. It's brilliant.
That's beautiful.
Isn't it great? It sounds great. I'm using my in-ears for the
Cool.
So it sounds great. Yeah, that's a Peter Tectonic.
That's a real Jersey thing, Washington Rock. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a landmark park in central Jersey, right outside of Plainfield, where I grew up. And on the top of the Watchung Mountains, and it's just a beautiful view overlooking half of New Jersey into New York City. Oh, wow. And it's where George Washington kind of spied on the British troops during the Revolutionary War. And it's just a place where all the kids would go. And and so I wrote a song. It was kind of a song starting about the place Washington Rock and the historical stuff, but then I also try to incorporate a song about fathers and sons, and I thought about my father taking me up there, and I thought about George Washington being the father of our country, so it tied in all these.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful piece of work. The vocals, everything. I was listening. I know you talked to me about a history buff, and I love how you added that to the song. And giving us that little background on that. It's terrific that you're able to do that. It's really
thank you. There's a kind of subtle underlying theme to the album, which goes with the 67,000 miles. I figured we're talking about the Earth traveling around the sun, so I wanted to talk about things on planet Earth, different places. So there's what I guess you would call geographical songs. There's songs about Washington Rock, and I have one about the High Line, which is this really nice scenic pathway in New York City. Yep. And I have a song about 2nd Street where some seedy stuff used to go on. Different things like that on the album.
It's something, I had my day hanging out down the Bowery back in, I guess it was early 80s. So I made my way to 2nd Street from Philadelphia a lot. And, I had a good friend of mine. His name was Paul Dugan. He lived on 10th Street, right by Katz Deli. And back then, if it was a whole different. It's like a whole place has changed now.
It's like a big tourist attraction.
It's unbelievable.
Back in the day. We just drove past there the other day, Nancy and I, and there was a line all the way down the whole end of the block just to get into the Stella.
Yeah.
It was all tourists.
Yeah.
Just to get
back in the day, I'm a fan of it, but honestly, it used to be better when I used to go years ago. It's, like anything else, it's become, it's a commercial area, and there was just such an incredible vibe of that part of the city.
Yeah.
I was telling my buddy Steve, I also, one of my, nowadays I play in a couple bands, and I play with a guy named Steve Butler, Brian Butler. He plays, we have a band called Smash Palace. And he said he played with you guys with the Doughboys 20 years ago. And he has a little project together with a guy named Edward Rogers. And he said you guys know each other. So
of course, we're good friends.
Yeah. And they make great sounding records too. They're doing great work, I always look forward to recording with Steve, because he's one of these guys that, he has a sound. He's a great guitar player, and
very talented,
really, really talented, really super great. So I want to go back a little bit and talk about the Doughboys, because little Steven, he loves you guys. I mean, he's
very good for us.
Yeah. And he saw you. So if, when you were playing, like when you were a teenager.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the story, how you guys came back together. Was it Nancy? Somebody threw a party. Nancy. Hi, Nancy.
Hi.
And I wish you were so far away, because it's great having you in the things. It's great. Hi. So, he threw the party, and all the guys came, and you realized that, like, let's give it a go.
Yeah.
And bang, you were making great music, and from what I understand, Kenny was telling me a couple guys in the Doughboys work with him with the Yardbirds, Mike.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you guys came back together. Was it like in 2000? You stopped playing together, what, in 2019? Yeah,
we just disbanded right before the pandemic, I guess. And our lead singer, Mike Scavone, moved to Texas. So
that'll do it.
Whole possibility of United Doughboys is probably pretty slim, but maybe we'll do a one-off gig sometime. But
I'll try to make that. I became a fan, and it's like there's bands, like when something like that happens, where a group of musicians that created some great music over the years come together. More times than not, it's always very special. You're just energy for one reason or another, why they became a band in the first place. But when they get together and they play, it's magical, and you guys were successful. You had the greatest song of the world. What little Steven has?
We had 8 of them. We had 8 coolest songs in the world.
Are you kidding me? 8?
Yeah.
So well, that's really fantastic, man. Amazing.
So we were thrilled, to have airplay. Just that thought, and I'm sure you know what this is like. Just the knowledge that you or someone else is riding in their car, and all of a sudden they're hearing your music.
Yeah.
What a feeling that is.
Yeah. I've had both ends of that. I love the fact that, listen, I remember, like in the early 80s, like the Hooters do most of our work in Europe these days. We're like, we'll tour in Europe a lot. We've spent 6 weeks this summer in Europe. And then we actually already know I'm going back next summer for, God willing, we all stay healthy and we're okay. But we'll leave for another tour that will be a nice lengthy tour. And we're able to tour with a tour bus and do the whole thing. And
it's great.
Yeah, it's a great thing. But I remember early on, you mentioned like people listen on the radio. When I was a youngster, getting a record played on the radio, and Freddie experienced this too with Amos Lee. But in the 80s, it was crazy because we had a song one day. It was on radio, and I went through it was called Day by Day, and it was like it went number 6 on the chart. I went to every radio station on my dial, and it was on every radio station at one time. I'm going to admit, I turned it off because I was like inundated with it. I just went, oh my God. So that was a moment. And then you think, like, actually, I thought, oh, well, this will happen all the time. Then you make a record that nobody cares about. You know, it's like the other end of it, you know, it's like, oh man, you know, you get slammed or whatever, you know, but you know, you make a record and you hope people are going to hear it. That's like the main objective. You like, you want people to hear your music. I'm so glad that you could come on the podcast, because I heard so many great things about you, and and everything true, man. It was really cool, Richard. You know, you're a cool dude, and you're like, you know, I can't wait to come out to see you play live again. You know that, that'd be great. I'll come on. I want to play another tune. Okay. We're running out some time here, so I want to play. You Can Tell Me. Can we get that there, Rich?
Turn it up, Rich.
Staring out your open window to the steaming street below. Now deserted as the way I feel. There's so much I meant to say here. There's so much I cannot say. But before the morning takes us, let me find a way. You can tell me that you never meant I want to go astray. You can tell me that forever till I try to find a way. Come on, let our time arrive. For tomorrow will not bring us while the nights are alive. At the newsstand by the corner, I can see them closing up as the midnight bus rolls slowly by. There's no one out on the sidewalk, all except the lone gray cat. And it's me, I'm blinking shadow. I feel like that. You can tell me that I always figure someone close behind. You can tell me that it all stays right beneath the love you'll find. Come on, think it through what's wrong, for the present might seem brighter when you close that door.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
You can tell me that it all stays right beneath the love you'll find. Come on, let our time arrive. For tomorrow will not bring us while the nights are alive. You can tell me. You can tell me.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, guys.
I hear that. I hear your it's got, there's like your influence of Keith Moon in there. I could hear a little of those fills. It's awesome. No,
And was that a harpsichord? The piano played half speed, pitched up.
No, I'll tell you how that was done. That's
Please.
well, I wrote the song on piano.
Uh-huh.
It's a very old song of mine, actually. One of the first songs I ever wrote that's just been hanging around for decades and decades. And I never really could get it right. I tried it a few times. So anyway, finally got it right. Finished up the lyrics, and it's a piano, regular piano played in real time, and then a Rickenbacker 12-string playing the exact same notes as the piano.
Oh, wow.
And I believe a Telecaster as well. They're all playing the exact same arpeggios together.
Wow.
And a lot of people think it's some sort of sampled harpsichord sound, but that's what
Right.
Yeah, it's you play.
I really avoid, I don't have anything against people, use
Sampling,
loops or whatever they want to do. Sample is great.
Yeah.
For me,
But if you can get the sound, you get the sound.
So
You get it.
old school, I try to do everything organically.
Right.
So
Right on.
pretty much everything you hear on my albums is the real instrument.
Well, you have to go play it. That's one great thing about that is that if you got to play it live, you can.
Yeah, that's
You know what I mean? You don't have to like go, how am I going to get this sound? You knew what you did it. It was you. Your amp and whatever in your hands, your fingers, and doing it. How about the vocals? Is that all you? Was Nancy on the vocals on that with you?
That's all me on that one.
Wow. It's really beautiful, man.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, really nicely done, and it's really refreshing to hear a record like that.
Yeah, Nancy's on bass.
She's great.
A lot of bass playing.
Bass player.
About 10 of the 15 songs is Nancy.
Yeah.
And she uses a Hofner bass.
Oh yeah, I got one. I have one.
And, she plays with a pick, extra heavy pick, so she gets a sound that I can't get. I play with my fingers, and
Right.
so I've been using her more and more because she's better than me, and I just love the sound that she gets. And I got to give kudos to her.
But he taught me to play bass.
Yeah. And then you took it to another level. There you go.
Yeah, there you go. And also, I want to shout out to the drums. It's a vintage Rogers kit that I used.
Wow. There you go. Freddie
That's
has
what
one.
I use.
Freddie was playing one on Saturday night.
Oh, cool.
Right? Did you have it Saturday?
65 Holiday White Marine Pearl. I've had them since I was 9 years old.
Very good. Yeah. You know what happened with me? I mean, I was a Ludwig guy starting. Well, actually, my first kit was a Kent.
Oh, I had a
They
Jet.
make some good
Mine
drums.
was a Jet.
Whatever. Yeah.
Marine Pearl.
Yeah.
That was
Nice.
my first kit when I was 7 years old. Believe it or not.
Wow.
Nice.
Wow.
Had them for years, and then I saw Ringo, like everybody, and
Of course.
How'd you get the Ludwigs?
had to get Ludwig. So I got a
Yeah.
gold.
Yep.
I got gold sparkle for some reason. I don't know why, but I got gold sparkle.
Yeah.
20-inch bass drum.
Nice.
Wow.
I kept going through a couple different Ludwig kits as the 60s progressed.
Yeah.
I ended up with a green sparkle at one
Oh,
point.
yeah. The John Bonham kit was the green one. Remember,
I know.
the green one.
I have a funny story about that. I was playing, I don't know if you remember, there's a club called TJ's. It was right on the border of New York and New Jersey.
Uh-huh.
This is in the early 70s. And I just got my green sparkle Ludwig set. And the only reason I got green sparkle is I looked at all the different colors on the back of the catalog. And I said, what's the weirdest color that nobody wants? I said, I'm getting green sparkle.
That's funny.
So I got it and played TG's that weekend. And they used to have 4 bands playing on 2 different levels. And 3 of the 4 bands had green sparkled kits.
I knew you were going to say that.
I couldn't believe it. I said, oh, didn't you know John Bonham just toured with a green sparkle?
So everybody was getting green, right?
I was so mad that I covered it. I took the green sparkle off.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like I peeled off the plastic. And anyway.
Oh, my God.
Just to make a long story longer. I watched a lot of Buddy Rich at one point on YouTube.
Hey, what kudos to you that you mentioned in that article, you mentioned Gene Krupa. You mentioned Gene was one of your big, showman, his doing his thing, Awesome. I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
No. Speaking of showman, I got to know Dino Dinelli from the last.
Mm-hmm.
He actually played on my first single that I made. But where was it? Oh yeah, so I've been listening to somebody Rich, and he played everything. He's Slingerland. Then he went to Ludwig, but at one point he played Rogers, and I noticed that the toms had a particular resonance that I really liked. Yeah. And I just thought, I have a nice vintage Ludwig kit, so I found a really beautiful old, early '60s Rogers kit.
Nice.
eBay, and I got it.
Oh,
24-inch bass drum.
Wow.
Nice.
That's a
Hey,
biggie back then.
Buddy
Yes.
Rich played whatever they paid him to play,
Yeah, right.
except for he always used a 5 snare drum.
Right.
That was his thing.
A Fibes?
Yeah.
Yep. That was his thing.
Wow,
Yeah.
I didn't know.
He hit it. Or I'm sure they knew, but
Yeah.
everything else would be Slingerland
Wow,
or
wow.
Rogers or Ludwig. I mean,
The
he
way
went
he
through
would
the
play, when he would do that little single stroke roll, the single stroke
Yeah.
like that.
5
that roll,
snare drum.
Like, oh my God. Was it like, how do you, like, that's
He's like
incredible. He was a freaking. Hey, listen. Hey, Richard, did you ever go into living in New York? Did you ever go to the Modern Drum Shop where Joe Casadas used to have that shop on 46th Street?
Yeah.
He used to go over there. Yeah. I used to spend my Saturdays. I took lessons with him for a couple of years. So I would take the train up, go up to that drum shop, and he moved a couple different places. I think the first place I went to, he was on this little store. It was almost like, 3 people could fit in the store, and he was putting the sticks in there. And, I used to go up there.
I'm sorry. I just remember when we moved from our old apartment in the East Village to where we are now, the Lower East Side. My floor tom went missing from my Ludwig kit. It just disappeared. It didn't move. I couldn't find it. It's just gone. I was so upset about it. I went to a Modern Drum Shop and I had them build me because I couldn't find a matching floor tom. This is before eBay and stuff. And so they built me a floor tom to match.
Oh, wow. They were the great people, man. It was back in the day that those drum shops were like, you don't have those anymore like that.
It was a real thrill going up to those places.
Oh, it was always like amazing. And I always walk in when I was younger. A lot of times I'd see Mitch Mitchell was in Apolito's one day when I was there. And I was like, 2 times Carl Palmer was there and then Mitch Mitchell. And I was almost like, whoa, like, wow.
He's a big influence on me, Mitch Mitchell.
Yeah, Mitch was fantastic.
Those first 2 albums are just
Oh.
everything you need to know about. I mean, he was very frenetic, and some might accuse him of overplaying, but I thought he made those albums special.
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, Noel Redding and Mitch and Jimmy were like incredible.
Yeah, I saw one of my favorite concerts. I saw them at Hunter College in a small auditorium.
Wow.
And I was so impressed with the whole musicality of the thing. You think it's Hendrix is going to be a wild thing, but I remember they were doing Up From the Skies and Mitch is playing with the brushes. And I was sitting there thinking, I can actually, and this is before they got crazy with all the close miking of the drums. They just had a few mic. And I remember thinking, I can hear his foot hitting that hi-hat, sitting out in the auditorium. That's how musical it was then. It was just so nice.
Yeah, man.
Great jazz group.
Yeah.
And then,
those were the days. I miss it.
Don't get me to talk to you guys for hours about.
Yeah, I know. Well, we have to do it. Listen, we're coming to the witching hour. And I want to thank you so much. What do you got? Do you have any live stuff? What's going on? Want to promote anything? You got stuff you want to promote?
Yeah,
be my guest. This is spot.
This new album is on the books right now. I want to try to spread the word, and that's why I appreciate you having me on. It's just
and I'll send me links. Send me your website, anything. I'll put it on when I share it. I'll get you the links. We'll get it out there as much as we can. Cool. You're making beautiful music. We're fans. It's cool stuff, isn't it, Fred?
Yeah, man.
I really
beautiful.
It warms the cockles of my heart to hear this because it's so hard to find new people. Even my generation, people are so set in their ways, and you try to play something new for them, and they just don't want to hear about it. So it's that I think if people hear the music, if they get it, they're going to get it, and they'll say, I want to get this album. So that's what it's all about. I mean,
this is really well done. It sounds great. I mean, I got 4 bars in, and I went, I'm sold. Maybe 2. Really, it was just really one of those things. You knew the journey was going to be good.
Oh, good.
And I was like, this is
the 2 songs that you played were more of my kind of pop side, but it was also, because I had all those years in the Doughboys, I was writing for them. So I took a bunch of songs that they recorded that I had written and put them on this album with my take on them. And so kind of like garage rock songs, but done with a more
Awesome.
sense
Well,
of.
since we still got a little bit of time. I want to come back. But I want to play. Let's play some of the Doughboys. You have that, Rich? Crank it up, Rich.
That's cool.
When you find yourself in a jam in the middle of the blue, when you're drowning in a sea of derision, take stock of yourself and make a decision. Gotta sink or swim, either gotta sink or swim. Although you might just think it's grim, you gotta either sink or swim. Life is a series of up and down, good and bad. If you're lucky, balances out happy and sad. So go out in the world, my son, and remember in a fix what has to be done. Sink or swim, either gotta sink or swim. Although you might just think it's grim, you gotta either sink or swim. Yeah.
That sounds great.
Sometimes it's hard to keep your head above the common wave. And you're out by yourself going down, it's either save or cave. Yeah, you think you got nothing more, but something inside you leads you back to shore. You gotta sink or swim, either gotta sink or swim. Although you might just think it's grim, you gotta either sink or swim. Sink or swim, either gotta sink or swim. Although you might just think it's grim, you gotta either sink or swim. Yeah. No treading water here.
Wow. That
Yeah.
rocks. I mean, that's the way it's done. That's really good, man.
Thank you.
That's really great. That's great. Well, I hope you guys play again someday, man. It sounds great,
Yeah,
man.
that was
It's
a
great.
fun-
And I
fun
hope you
thing.
get out on the road and do some stuff with your records and
Yeah, it would be nice.
You know.
It's hard. It's tough getting that kind of thing together these days. But
yeah.
yeah,
Tell me about it. Yeah, it's tough.
but in the
man.
meantime, got the CD, got the streaming, all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, anything we can do to promote it, you let us know. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
You're doing amazing stuff, and I've become a fan of from that conversation when it came from that. But that's really odd that Kenny and I were talking about that. Freddie, I don't know if you were here to hear our conversation, how I learned about Richard. I was asking Kenny about who's because he's played with so many drummers, and so who's your favorite drummer? And he's and Kenny gets he thought he's sitting there thinking, and I don't hear from him. There's this guy, Richard X Heyman, he's does these things, and it's you got to check him out. He's he just surprises you with these cool rock fill. He was like you just did on that track.
Wrong.
That track was oh, cool. You're kind of leading the charge, but stay into the frame. And, really, really, really nice, man. It's just, and he was right. So then I it was just cosmic vibe. Your PR guy Howard hit me up and says, "Hey, I have a client. He's putting out a record. He's Richard X Heyman." I wrote back. I said, "I know who that is. Bring him on." I said, "I never met him." I said, "But let's have him on, man." I said, "I think we'll vibe together."
That's great.
So it was terrific. I knew we would fall in love with what you do. So I wish you the best with your holidays and enjoy the holiday season. It was a terrific and the what was the cat's name again? Nancy, the cat.
Redford.
What was it?
Redford. There it is.
Like Robert.
Oh man,
Redford.
Redford was found. They found him on the street. He's living large now. He hit the jackpot with Richard and Nancy.
There he is.
He's no longer in the streets of New York.
He's on the bed here and lounging.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. It was a real pleasure.
I'm a big fan, and I'm honored to have you do this and interview me.
Well, anything that we can do, hit me up anytime. I'm going to hit Howard up for your contact. Let him know that I'm cool. I'm not a stalker. We're going to keep in contact. And one of these days, my wife and I and Freddie will drag Alana and Freddie will come up and see you play.
Yeah, I'd love that.
You ever, let's all do dinner or something.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Right on.
Cool. Yeah, we come up to the East Side. We always stay at the Soho Grand. We like that hotel. We come and hang out there, hang out in that area. When we can, we're gonna do something probably before we go on the road.
We're down on the Lower East Side here, and
yeah, we'll come over there. For sure.
I'm gonna definitely check out some Freddie B. I'm gonna look for you on YouTube. There must be some stuff on YouTube I could check.
Yeah.
I'm actually playing with a friend of yours tonight, my old buddy Pete Donnelly from the Figs.
Oh,
he's coming down. Pete used to live in Philly for years, so I play with him.
Where's Pete? Where are you guys playing tonight?
We're playing at Laura Mann's place.
Oh, cool.
Us and the Fractals.
Oh, all right. So what?
Huff and Moose, Fractals.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Minus Huff and Moose, minus.
That's a fun gig.
Yeah.
Give Pete my best too.
Will do.
All right. Well, listen. I think
keep rocking. Keep on rocking there.
We keep rocking.
Yes.
That's all we know. That's all we know. Hey, I want to thank our sponsors, the School of Rock. I want to thank Rich DeSesto for helping us put this podcast on. It's always fun to do. It's great to connect with people. And for this is podcast 115. We'll see you in a few. C'est la vie from In the Pocket.
David Uosikkinen In the Pocket is sponsored by the School of Rock Main Line. I'd like to thank the School of Rock Main Line, located at 511 Old Lancaster Road in Berwyn. You can visit their website at schoolofrock.com. Ask for Dave Marsh or Rick Allison.